This interview is brought to you by Nutanix. Nutanix makes extending to the public cloud simpler, faster, and more cost-effective by eliminating complicated application dependency mapping and refactoring. See how at nutanix.com/govcio.
Thanks for tuning in to a special episode from AWS Summit. I'm Editor-in-Chief Amy Kluber, and I connected with two leaders from the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. That's Corley, Chief Scientist for AI, and Scott Godwin, Director of the Center for Cloud Computing. They talked about the foundational compute capabilities and enabling access to cloud and AI for researchers tackling critical issues like sustainable energy and national security. Listen in.
So as the director of the Center for AI at PNNL, we are focused on AI enablement across our organization, advancing state-of-the-art and its application in energy-efficient AI and assuring AI systems and applying it to all the domains that we have. And it's a fantastic place to be while also thinking about generative AI and how we can bring it both into our work and into our research.
Yeah, so leading the Center for Cloud Computing, Court and I obviously partner quite closely together, providing those foundational compute capabilities for our researchers, but then enabling them to access the cloud services, AI services as well. So that's a big portion of both of our centers and enabling our research community to advance their missions for federal sponsors. Yeah, so it is a vastly quick-changing space, and whether it's new services coming out from AWS or the other cloud providers, seems like it's almost a weekly thing. So it can be overwhelming for any of our staff to stay in front of that and feel like they have the latest and greatest. So part of our job is scanning that landscape, looking for those services that we think are most applicable for our mission. We work with AWS and other cloud providers to come in and brief those kind of capabilities, to brief not only current, but the roadmap of where we're going, and to help educate our sponsor, or our staff and our sponsors in that space.
Yeah. And really, I think also about, our staff using the tools at the same time in the field of AI, which is where I sit in primarily. It's changing so quickly. Just even being able to communicate, here's what you should use, here's what you shouldn't, here's what we're ready for, and with our federal sponsors, here's where we're not. It's an exciting space to be, for sure. Sure, I'll take AI. So one, I think, access to compute is something that's always, a challenge. Something where maybe we want to build our own models. And so what does that entail? And so next generation platforms and infrastructure is what we think about a lot on the research side, and how do we enable our staff to use them. Some of the challenges still are around data and how we can interface data from different domains. And we've seen with ChatGPT and the other large language models that whenever you bring together large amounts of data, you can do some pretty sophisticated things. And now we have an opportunity in the Department of Energy to really think about what does that mean to bring our user facilities together, to bring data from our different experiments, high energy physics, lasers, and neutron source, and everything else. So it's pretty exciting to think, but it is a challenge at the same time.
And I'd say from the compute standpoint, while cloud plays a critical role, it is not cloud in isolation. So, we've got very unique equipment, the only piece of equipment like that in the world. It might be at the edge, it might be in a lab. Those kind of environments are always going to exist. And so you need to think about that continuum of compute, right from the edge through cloud, through HPC, and really how to help the researcher in that entire workflow. And we think cloud's playing an increasing role in that. We're using it heavily in our own research, but it's, again, not in isolation. So what that means, to Port's point on data, how do we manage data through that workflow? That in and of itself is a huge challenge, right? Data provenance, data curation through that, even all the way down to storage. So it's a complex problem that we're still evolving, but exciting time to be.
So I would at least say with scientists and engineers, the DOE complex, we have tens of thousands of scientists and engineers, many of whom are trained in their discipline on how to use certain capabilities or tools. And so I think as with any cultural change that comes along, bringing everybody along with them, showing what's possible, what is the art of possible. I'm sure Scott will talk, there's a great example of computational chemists and how modeling and simulation is done. But I think it applies to many other fields and like the culture change that's needed to be able to leverage the tools, but also go into it with perhaps a healthy dose of skepticism. Being, an S&T community, we want to make sure that we are thinking about how to assure our results and make sure that they're validated and verified and so forth.
Yeah, it's each domain space is different. Computational chemistry, material science, our nuclear domain, nuclear energy, energy grid. Some are more proactive in that, and whether that's our scientists and researchers or even our federal sponsors have more aggressive mentality towards embracing technology. But for any of them, I've grown up doing it this way, using these tools, and what you're presenting to me is a whole new paradigm. And some are more open to that than others. And so our job is to help make that transition a lot easier. Yeah, this is a great chance to get together with 22,000 of your best friends. And, but no, it's a great opportunity to meet new people. Just today, meeting several new contacts in different organizations around the world. So that's probably the biggest benefit that I see. But also being able to dive in on particular technologies that we're using and running into challenges to understand how AWS is thinking about improving those over time.
Yeah. For me, it's always the networking and being able to talk with individuals after their talks and see like, okay, what are some additional challenges you had? How did you solve that? And of course, the networking that's available because many of our sponsors are here as well. And so being able to talk with them and then hear also from the providers what they're offering. And, it's a great environment to do that.